She walked into school every single day, knowing they were going to tear her apart. And one day, they went too far, and everything they built their little world on crumbled. All right, y'all, sit down, get comfortable, because what I'm about to tell you is one of those stories that's going to sit with you for a long, long time. Now, I know what you're thinking, another school bullying story, but nah, this one is different. This one's got layers. This one's got a villain arc, a redemption arc, a legal twist, and an ending that literally nobody saw coming. This is the story of Mia Torres, a 16-year-old girl from a small town in Ohio who just wanted to make it through her junior year without being completely destroyed. And then there's the group, the girls who ran the school, the ones who had the perfect Instagram feeds, the right last names, the kind of confidence that came from never being told no in their entire lives. We're talking about Brielle Harmon, Cassidy Walsh, and Tatum Okafor. 3 girls, 1 mission, and Mia was their target. By the time this story is over, you are going to have a lot of feelings. Pause, and trust me, the ending? It is not what you expect. Let's get into it. So here's how it started. Mia Torres moved to Crestfield, Ohio in September, right at the start of junior year. The absolute worst time to be the new kid. Everyone already has their friend groups, their seats, their routines, and you're just there, an outsider with no context. Mia's mom, Sandra Torres, had relocated the family after a messy divorce. They'd come from Chicago, from a whole different world. Mia was used to city schools, diversity, loud hallways, big energy. Crestfield was the opposite of all that. Population, 12,000. 1 high school. Everybody knew everybody. And Mia? She showed up with her natural hair, her thrift store fits, and her quiet confidence. And she immediately stood out. Not in a bad way, necessarily. She was smart. Really smart. Teachers liked her. She was in honors English, AP history. She had this way of articulating things that made adults stop and really listen to her. But that's the thing about certain social ecosystems. Being exceptional isn't always safe. Crestfield High had its own version of a caste system. And at the very top of that system was Brielle Harmon. Brielle was the kind of girl who was born into popularity. Her dad was on the city council. Her mom had been homecoming queen at the same school 20 years earlier. Brielle was a cheerleader, student council vice president, and had 14,000 followers on Instagram, in a town of 12,000 people. Do the math on that. She was pulling followers from outside the zip code. To most people, Brielle seemed perfect. Charming, even. She knew how to smile at adults and make them feel seen. She remembered teachers' names, held doors open, volunteered at the canned food drive. But behind closed doors, or more accurately, behind everyone's backs, Brielle was ruthless. And beside her her 2 lieutenants, Cassidy Walsh, who was basically Brielle's hype woman and enforcer, and Tatum Okafor, who was the smartest of the 3, and honestly the most dangerous because of it. The first time Brielle noticed Mia was about 2 weeks into the school year. Mia had gotten up in AP history class and given a presentation on redlining in American cities. The teacher, Mr. Patterson, literally started clapping. Said it was one of the best student presentations he'd seen in 15 years of teaching. The class applauded. Brielle did not. She sat in the back and just watched. And from that moment, something switched in her. See, Brielle was used to being the smartest in the room, or at least being perceived as the smartest. And this girl with the thrift store jacket and the Chicago address, had just walked in and stolen that moment without even trying. That was the beginning of the end. Now, I want y'all to understand something before we get into this next part. What Brielle and her crew did wasn't just mean girl stuff. It wasn't just eye rolls and whispered comments. It was organized. It was calculated. And it escalated in a way that should make every single adult listening to this check on the kids in their life. Right now, today, it started small, the way it always does. Brielle would be super sweet to Mia's face. Oh my God, I love your hair. You should sit with us at lunch. The whole 9 yards. Mia, who was lonely and just trying to find her footing, was cautiously hopeful. But the second Mia would walk away, Brielle would turn to Cassidy and go, "She thinks we actually like her. That's so sad." And they'd laugh. That part wasn't unusual. Unfortunately, that's just high school cruelty at its most basic. But then came phase 2. Brielle created a private Instagram account, not traceable to her real name, called Crestfield Receipts. The account started posting things about Mia. Not her face at first, just vague comments. Someone tell the new girl that thrift stores aren't a personality. Why does she always smell like her locker? Little stuff. Petty stuff. But enough to make people laugh. Enough to establish a narrative. Then the account posted a photo. It was a candid shot of Mia in the hallway, mid-step, looking down. Someone had added a caption that said, "Walking like she belongs here. She doesn't." Within 48 hours, that post had been screenshotted and shared in group chats across the entire school. Mia had no idea. None. She was just going about her day, going to class, eating lunch by herself in the library, texting her old Chicago friends who were slowly starting to respond less and less, because that's what happens when you move away. Her mom noticed something was off. Sandra would ask Mia how school was going, and Mia would say fine. Just that flat, closed-off fine that every parent knows means the exact opposite. But Sandra was dealing with her own stuff. The divorce. A new job. A new city. She was stretched thin. She figured Mia was just adjusting. She'd come around. She didn't. By November, just 2 months in, Mia's grades had started slipping. Not dramatically, but Mr. Patterson noticed. Her English teacher noticed. She'd gone from enthusiastic participation to silent. From front row energy to back of the room invisible. And then came the incident. The one that changed everything. It was a Friday, right before winter break. The school was electric. Everyone was hyped about the holiday assembly, the cheerleading showcase, all of it. The hallways were loud and chaotic. Mia had PE fourth period. She was in the locker room changing after class when Brielle walked in with Cassidy and 2 other girls from the cheer squad. Now here's where I need y'all to really listen. Because what happened next wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't heat of the moment. Cassidy had her phone out before they even walked through the door. Brielle walked up to Mia, who was standing there in a vulnerable moment, not fully dressed, and started in on her. Loud enough for everyone in that locker room to hear. "Oh wow, I didn't realize the school issued charity cases this year." Laughter, echoing off those tile walls. Mia tried to grab her stuff, tried to just get out, but Cassidy blocked the aisle. And Brielle reached over and grabbed Mia's backpack. The one thing Mia was holding on to like a lifeline. She dumped it, right on the wet locker room floor. All of Mia's stuff, her notebooks, her books, her little makeup bag, everything, just dumped out. And then Cassidy posted the video. Within 3 hours, that video had been shared across every group chat in the school. Then it hit Reddit, then Twitter, then TikTok. By Saturday morning, Mia Torres, a 16-year-old girl who had done nothing to anyone, was being mocked by strangers across the country. The comments were vicious. We're not going to repeat them here, but they were the kind of comments that, when a teenager reads them, they don't just sting. They embed. They become a voice in your head. And Mia's mom found her daughter on Saturday night sitting on the bathroom floor, reading those comments one by one. That was the moment Sandra Torres stopped being stretched thin and became a force of nature. On Monday morning, Sandra Torres walked into Crestfield High like she owned the place. She had printed out 47 screenshots. She had a documented timeline. She had the link to the viral video. And she had retained a lawyer over the weekend. The school principal, a man named David Kessler, was not prepared for Sandra Torres. She sat down across from him and laid out everything. The anonymous account, the escalating harassment, the locker room video, the viral spread, the documented psychological harm to her daughter. Kessler did what a lot of administrators do in situations like this. He fumbled. He said things like, "We take bullying very seriously, and we'll look into this, and students' off-campus behavior is difficult for us too." Sandra cut him off. "My daughter's video was filmed on this campus. In your building. During school hours. By students who are enrolled here." Kessler went pale. "See, here's the thing about Brielle's world. Everyone in it had been protected their whole lives. Parents with money and connections tend to create kids who believe consequences are for other people. Brielle had been in minor trouble before. Little stuff. And it always disappeared. Because her dad knew who to call. But this was different. The video had gone viral. Which meant there was a public record. Which meant the school's handling of it, or mishandling, was now also on public record. By Tuesday, a local news outlet in Columbus had picked up the story. By Wednesday, it was on 3 different news stations. By Thursday, less than a week after that video was posted, Brielle Harmon's real name was being connected to the anonymous account by people online who had done their own digging. And that's when the Harmon family's lawyer showed up at the school. But it was too late. because Sandra Torres had already filed a formal police report for cyberbullying, for harassment, and potentially, for the distribution of an invasive video of a minor in a state of undress. That last part? That's where this story goes from high school drama to criminal matter. Ohio has a criminal cyberbullying statute, and when the victim is a minor and the content involves a vulnerable situation, the charges can be severe. Cassidy Walsh, who actually posted the video, was 17. Brielle, who orchestrated it, was 17. Their parents hired lawyers. Good ones. But the DA's office opened an investigation. And that investigation was not quiet. The school, suddenly facing massive liability, suspended Brielle, Cassidy, and Tatum, all three of them, pending the investigation. And the town of Crestfield? Split right down the middle. Now here's where this story gets uncomfortable. Because I need to be real with y'all. When this kind of thing goes public in a small town, it doesn't automatically result in justice and community healing and everybody learning their lesson. No, what it often results in is sides. And Crestfield took sides hard. There was a parent Facebook group. You know the kind. Every small town has one, called Crestfield Parents Connect. And within days, it was a war zone. Half the parents were appalled, demanding accountability, sharing resources about cyberbullying, supporting Sandra. The other half, these are good kids who made a mistake. This has been blown way out of proportion. That family is trying to ruin these girls' futures. And there were parents, people in their 40s and 50s, posting things that were arguably more vicious than what the teenagers had said. Tatum Okafor's mother went on the local news, sat there in a blazer and pearls and said, "My daughter is not a bully. She was present, but she didn't participate. She's being punished for being in the wrong place at the wrong time." A lot of people believed her. But here's what Tatum's mom didn't know, or maybe did know and was counting on people not finding out, was that Tatum had sent a DM to Mia the night before the locker room incident. The DM said, "You should just go back to Chicago. Nobody here wants you." That DM was part of Sandra's 47 screenshots. When that came out, when it was revealed in the initial school investigation, Tatum's mom went very quiet on the parent Facebook group. Meanwhile, Mia was not okay. I want to be honest about that. Because sometimes in these stories, we talk about the fight back phase and make it sound triumphant. Like once the legal stuff kicked in, Mia was riding high. She wasn't. She was struggling. She'd been pulled out of Crestfield High and was doing online school temporarily while the investigation played out. She was seeing a therapist. She had stopped reaching out to her old Chicago friends because she was too exhausted to explain everything. Sandra would check on her every night, sit on the edge of her bed, and Mia would say, "Mom, I just want this to be over." And Sandra would say, "I know, baby, but we're not letting them just get away with it. Not this time." The DA's office ultimately decided not to pursue full criminal charges against the girls, primarily due to their ages, prior clean records, and the specific limitations of Ohio's statute at the time. It was a controversial decision. A lot of people were furious. But the civil case? That was a different story. The DA's office ultimately decided not to pursue full criminal charges against the girls, primarily due to their ages, prior clean records, and the specific limitations of Ohio's statute at the time. It was a controversial decision. A lot of people were furious. But the civil case? That was a different story. Sandra Torres' attorney filed a civil lawsuit against the school district and against the families of Brielle Harmon and Cassidy Walsh. The lawsuit alleged negligent supervision, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and invasion of privacy. It never went to trial. It was settled, quietly, for an amount that was never disclosed to the public. But based on what people close to the case have said, it was significant. The school district implemented a mandatory digital citizenship curriculum, new anti-bullying policies, a reporting system with actual teeth. But here's the part that I think about the most. Brielle Harmon had been on track for a full cheerleading scholarship to a Division I school. She had her whole future mapped out. The college rescinded the scholarship offer after the story became national news. The admissions office sent a letter. Cassidy Walsh was removed from the school's honor society. Her early decision to a university in Pennsylvania was revoked. Tatum, who had been positioned to be valedictorian, finished her senior year at Crestfield under a cloud so thick that even the kids who had once laughed along with her didn't want to be seen near her. She graduated, but not the way she'd planned. And Brielle Harmon, by all accounts, genuinely fell apart. Not in a performative, "I'm so sorry I got caught" way. There were people who were close to her, former friends, a cousin who spoke publicly, who said that somewhere in the middle of all of it, Brielle had a moment of real reckoning. Looking at what she had done, not the consequences, not the scholarships, but what she had actually done to a human being who had never hurt her. Her cousin said Brielle couldn't watch the video. When her own lawyer played it for their case prep, Brielle left the room and cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes. That don't fix anything. Let me be clear about that. That doesn't give Mia back a single night of sleep. Doesn't erase a single comment she read. Doesn't undo the months of isolation and anxiety. But it's real. And in a story like this, real matters to us. Oh, here's where things stand. Mia Torres eventually returned to school, not Crestfield. Her mom moved them again, this time to a suburb of Columbus, where Mia enrolled as a senior with a fresh start. She graduated. She got into Ohio State on an academic scholarship, her own merit, no politics, no connections, just her brain and her work. She's studying communications with a focus on media law. When a local Columbus reporter interviewed her briefly at a community event about online harassment, Mia said something that I wrote down because it hit different. She said, "I spent so long wondering what I did wrong, why they chose me. And eventually I realized it had nothing to do with me. They chose me because I was new, because I was different, because I reminded them of something they were afraid of in themselves. And the moment I stopped trying to understand their cruelty and started focusing on my own life, that's when I started healing." Now here's the question I want to leave you with, and I want you to sit with this in the comments. We talk a lot about bullies eventually getting what they deserve, and in this case, there were real consequences. Real ones. Scholarships lost. Reputations destroyed. Legal settlements. All of it. But here's what I keep coming back to. Those consequences only happened because Sandra Torres had resources, because she could afford a lawyer, because the story went viral, because people paid attention. How many MIAs are out there right now who don't have a mom who can print out 47 screenshots and walk into a principal's office ready for war? How many kids are sitting on a bathroom floor tonight reading comments, and nobody knows? That's the real crime here. Not just what Brielle did, not just what Cassidy did, but a system in schools, online, in communities that allows this to keep happening over and over and over again until it's someone else's kid. Mia Torres made it, but she shouldn't have had to fight that hard just to survive high school. And neither should any of them, y'all. If this story hit you, I need you to do something for me right now. Drop a comment below. Tell me, have you ever witnessed something like this and said nothing? Or were you a Mia? Were you a Brielle? No judgment. This is a safe space to be honest. Because the only way things change is if we start talking about them. Smash that like button if you think Mia deserved better. Subscribe if you want more real stories that don't pull punches. And hey, next week, we're going into a case that happened right here in the US where the parents ended up behind bars because of what their kids did online. Yeah, the parents. You don't want to miss that one. Stay safe out there. I'll see y'all next week. Blackheart.